Welcome to G Fun Facts Online, where we unpack the big stories shaping our world. Today, we're diving into a high-stakes handshake that could be worth $500 billion. That's right, $500 billion. We're talking about a massive trade deal brewing between two of the world's largest democracies, the United States and India. This isn't just about business. It's a strategic move that could redraw the map of global trade and power. But getting there is like walking a tightrope, with massive challenges at every step. So what's really going on behind the closed-door meetings in Washington and New Delhi? The goal is ambitious: to more than double their trade to that staggering $500 billion mark by 2030. To get the ball rolling, they're aiming for a mini-deal by the fall of 2025. This is like the first-stage rocket burn, designed to build enough momentum to get the full, comprehensive deal into orbit. And the clock is ticking, because if they fail, steep U.S. tariffs on Indian goods could snap back into place. The first major hurdle is, you guessed it, tariffs. The U.S. has a trade deficit with India, meaning it buys more from India than it sells. In 2024, this gap was over $41 billion in goods alone. This led the previous Trump administration to famously call India the tariff king. In a pretty dramatic move, the U.S. announced it was ready to slap a 26% reciprocal tariff on imports from India and other countries. These have been put on hold for now to let negotiations happen, but the threat is still very much on the table. India naturally wants those proposed tariffs gone for good, but they also have their own list of complaints about existing U.S. duties on their key exports. We're talking about things like textiles and clothing, which face U.S. tariffs up to 16%, and their multi-billion-dollar gems and jewelry industry. But tariffs are just the beginning. The most sensitive, most complicated obstacle is agriculture. The U.S. wants much greater access for its farm and dairy products into India's market. For India, this isn't just an economic question. It's about culture, religion, and the livelihood of millions. Take dairy. India's dairy industry is one of the world's largest, but it's mostly made up of small, local farmers. There's a huge fear that a flood of subsidized American dairy products could wipe them out. Then there's the cultural angle. A large portion of India's population is vegetarian, and there are deep concerns because many American dairy cows are given feed that contains animal byproducts, a practice that clashes with religious and cultural beliefs. India's entire agricultural sector, which employs a massive chunk of its population, is fiercely protected. The government knows that any deal seen as hurting farmers could lead to massive protests. So while the U.S. is pushing to sell more apples, corn, and nuts, India is holding firm on politically sensitive crops. Add in the whole debate over genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, which are common in U.S. farming but mostly banned in India, and you have a recipe for a serious stalemate. Beyond tariffs and farming, there's a whole maze of what are called non-tariff barriers. Think of these as the bureaucratic hurdles. The U.S. points to India's complex regulations, different product standards, and lengthy licensing procedures that make it tough for American companies to sell their goods. For example, India might require products to be tested and certified locally, adding time and cost. India, on the other hand, points right back, arguing that the U.S. has its own set of non-tariff barriers that make it difficult for Indian companies to export their goods and services. And in our modern world, no trade deal is complete without talking about the digital economy. Here, another disagreement pops up. The U.S. is a big advocate for the free flow of data across borders. It's the lifeblood of tech giants like Google and Amazon. But India has been pushing for something called data localization, which would force companies to store Indian users' data on servers located inside India. For India, this is about digital sovereignty and having control over its citizens' information. For American tech firms, it's a huge operational headache and a barrier to their business model. So why are both sides trying so hard to overcome these massive obstacles? Because this deal is about more than just money. It's a geopolitical linchpin. Both the US and India are increasingly concerned about China's growing power in the Indo-Pacific region. By strengthening their economic ties, they can build more resilient supply chains that don't depend on China, a strategy sometimes called friendshoring. A strong trade deal would cement their strategic partnership, allowing them to work together to counter coercive trade practices and set global standards for the future. So what's the path forward? The road to that $500 billion handshake is long and full of compromises. A full, comprehensive deal isn't likely to happen overnight. The immediate focus is on that early harvest agreement, a smaller deal to tackle the less controversial issues first. This would build trust and create momentum to tackle the really tough nuts like agriculture and data localization later on. The success of this whole endeavor will depend on whether both nations can find a delicate balance between their ambitious goals and their domestic political realities. The world is watching to see if these two giants can forge a partnership that will not only shape their own futures but leave a lasting mark on the entire global economic order. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.